Okay, the Parks Committee is going to come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman KREWSON, Alderman French, Alderman VACCARO.
Present.
Alderman Villa.
Here.
Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Ingracia.
Present.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy. Here. Alderwoman Green. Chairman Ortman.
Present.
6 present, you have a quorum.
And Alderwoman KREWSON has to be excused. And what we have in front of us is Board Bill 308. Alderwoman Ingracia, do you want to go back over, or we can take a vote on
To put it in front of us.
put the bill in front of us.
No, I'm good, thank you.
You're going to stay?
Yep.
So anyway, Alderman VACCARO was going to present the bill, so you're on.
So this is PACE, which is it's a clean energy, well, it stands for Property Assessment Clean Energy Program. To everything that I understand about it, the city has a PACE program, but mostly deals with businesses. This would be another PACE program that could combine with them or with the county, and the county is going to introduce similar legislation that would actually allow people to do energy efficient stuff on their house. And I don't know about low interest, but somewhere maybe 4 to 8% interest loans, and the payments would go over the length of the time that their mortgage is. Since I'm not an expert on it, and that's my best assessment, John is an expert, so I would ask him to clean up what I just said and then open for questions.
And this is John C. Harris from Missouri Clean Energy District. So, John, would you like to?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Alderman. I might just say that, so I'm the Director of Finance for the Missouri Clean Energy District, which is a statewide program set up to essentially provide a framework for a PACE program in communities throughout the state. The PACE Act in Missouri, which was passed in 2010, established that any community may establish a so-called Clean Energy Development Board. St. Louis currently has a so-called Clean Energy Development Board called Set the Pace that's operating now. The Missouri Clean Energy District is another such Clean Energy Development Board that essentially was set up to be a statewide authority. And the way it works is that it allows communities to join with it to have access essentially to the property owners within that jurisdiction to the funding available through the district. And the funding is a sort of an important aspect of PACE, and it addresses a mismatch essentially of funding sources for the types of projects that we're talking about. We were talking earlier about how difficult it is sometimes for or business or a residential property owner to understand how they can afford an energy retrofit. There are plenty of people out telling us that we can, do something to our property to improve the energy efficiency and save money. But oftentimes, it's difficult to come up with the upfront money to do that. But even if you can, sometimes the capital source available for that, a loan at the bank or something like that, is not a good match for that type of project that we're financing, because when we have an energy retrofit in our house or a business, we look at the energy savings that we have, and that's sort of a fixed amount of money. So that's kind of a revenue stream to the finance guy's mind. That's a revenue stream. But when we go to the bank, and they're glad to lend us money, maybe, but the problem is the banks are forced to, and I'm not running down banks because I'm a banker, but the mechanism is that banks are forced to reprice their money. And as soon as that happens, as soon as you think about that, then that becomes a risk for you as a property owner, because you had this revenue stream or, the amount coming in from your savings. But and you match that to your loan to install this, but if it's gonna be repriced, then all of a sudden that goofs up your calculus. And so that's the mindset here that PACE provides, and what PACE does is it allows access to a capital source that is long-term fixed rate financing. And this is no different than what the city has already contemplated in its existing PACE authority. The Missouri Clean Energy District has unlimited funding for not only commercial projects but residential projects, importantly. And it will be the first in the state providing that. This is important because up till now only commercial property owners have been able to access this. What the Missouri Clean Energy District is doing is providing here is access to a system that really makes sense. It's a sort of a market-based program where the residential property owners, don't have to do a lot of research. It just makes the whole process easier for the property owners to do what they've been trying to do, but have encountered these barriers.
So I think we'll let me ask a question.
Yeah, was there a question?
Are you ready for questions?
Well, if you'd like me.
Alderman Friend.
No questions.
Alderman Villa, we always have a question here.
Why is this in parks?
Huh?
In environmental manners.
I just deal with what comes.
Parks and environment.
Environmental manners.
This is the. Reading from the summary, so the city would have absolutely no liability. And the city, would we have to, how do you approach my next door neighbor to get involved in this?
Your property owner, next door neighbor?
Yeah.
So this is driven mostly through the contractor community. So what happens is in 80% of the cases, you and I are tree huggers, and we might call for an energy auditor for our house or something like that, but most of this is
You
driven.
and I are not tree huggers.
Okay.
but go ahead.
You can have that, Christine, if you want it. I don't necessarily.
Some folks are tree huggers.
No, he's a gas guzzler.
There are those who are tree huggers who might avail.
But I'm not trying to be
Yeah, but-
flippant.
so-
I
but-
can be on rare occasions.
But to address your question, all of this, save the occasional tree hugger who wants a full audit and so on.
So would my
avail themselves.
Pella window representative say, hey, there's money available for me to put
That
in
fellow would.
energy efficient windows?
That fellow would, yeah. And when your neighbor's heater, breaks in the middle of the winter, they're not waiting for some auditor. They want some action. But what our goal is to encourage them to select an energy efficiency device for that retrofit. And so their Lennox dealer or their vendor would say, I have this program available, and would you like to have access to this, which will attach to your property and all the other benefits.
And could you just very briefly describe the board makeup
The board of the Missouri Clean.
and the representative that the city of St. Louis would have on
Yeah.
that?
So the operation of the board has 5 board members who are elected. The election process involves every member community to the board. And so each member has an advisory member who is named in your ordinance, who should be named in the ordinance. And that person is responsible for nominating and then electing the oncoming board members. That's the process. And that's how all of our communities then have participation in the process.
I'm sorry, I missed some. So 5 members are elected? And then
Yes.
who's responsible for nominating?
Each member community, so let me just go back a half a step. So each So the Missouri Clean Energy District was established initially in Jefferson City, and then its jurisdiction grows through member communities, right? So each of those member communities has representation on the, in the nominating committee board, and then that committee is responsible for not only nominating but electing the board members. So every community has a representative who, you know, engages with the board process and then elects board members as needed.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry, Tom.
And bottom line is, the commonality with the participating other board members would be energy efficiency and/or cleaning up the air, cleaning up water, whatever it becomes. So, but it's conceivable that the city of St. Louis would be in with Afton, which is an immediate suburb, Lime, which is an immediate suburb. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we could be, and the size of the other people on the board, they could be bigger than us or considerably smaller than us.
That's correct, yes.
And the only bigger than us would be St. Louis County,
Well,
that I can think of.
yes.
Is this necessarily done on a regional basis? The board?
Well,
Or can we be in with Lee's Summit?
yes.
We can be in with Lee's Summit.
So it's a statewide.
I'm not sure I know what you're asking. Are you asking the representative to the board?
Yes.
So St. Louis would have a representative to the board, a member. At Charlotte would, you know, if that's what you're asking, would
Okay.
have one representative to the board. Kansas City has one representative to the board.
And there's
So
five.
that's as it is
It's
now.
the Senate model as opposed to the House of Representatives.
So it's statewide board versus a regional.
It is
board.
a statewide board.
That's what he was asking. I got you.
Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Alderwoman Gracia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you articulate sort of how the taxes being on the property affect mortgages?
Mhm. So, this is a special property tax assessment. And it's similar, just to kind of give a little framework here, it's similar to what we may know about already, community improvement district, neighborhood improvement district, even TIFs. This is a special property tax assessment. And so that is essentially is an assessment that's equal to other taxing districts, ad valorem taxes, so on. And so this is, so the board provides funding for residential retrofit of a heater or air conditioner, and it, you know, costs $10,000 or something. So what happens is there is a property tax assessment contract between the property owner and the district. The district provides the funding for the retrofit. That assessment contract is recorded in the county recorder's office. And so, you know, as it affects, and I think what you're speaking to is how it affects a real estate transaction. So what happens is, as the alderman mentioned, this is an assessment that runs with the property. So it applies to the actual property, whether it's business property or residential property. And it may stay with the property. So if we have a sale of the property, then that assessment may stay with the property. And however, that's not a restriction. And so let's say I want to sell my house, and my buyer, if it's a conforming property, my buyer needs to borrow to buy the house, get a mortgage to buy the house. And they just think it's fiddly, or for some reason they don't want that assessment. It's like other assessments. It may be removed on a sale. It can stay with it, or it can be removed. It's up to the parties, really, to the transaction.
If it gets removed, where does it go?
And they gotta pay.
But it's just paid,
Paid?
right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You would pay it,
Okay.
It's a part of the negotiation between the parties of the sale.
but it also helps that instead of like if your heater went out and you did it, and you had to get a new heater, rather than put it on a credit card at 18% interest, this would allow it and again, correct me if I'm wrong,
That's
to
right.
go the length of your mortgage. So the payments, it doesn't cost the city or the taxpayers anything.
Yeah, I understand that.
But it would be a way of taking out a 10 or 15-year loan with an interest rate that, depending on whatever, could be as low as 4,
I
as
got
much
that.
as 8.
There was something before, and I apologize, I should have looked it up before I came, with respect to mortgage. I mean,
Yes.
there were some problems in California that I think were
I
resolved.
can speak to that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, can you just explain?
Okay, so the reason that I haven't been here until now, with regard to the residential side, is that, you know, the 800-pound gorilla in terms of residential lending would be, you know, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, now received under FHFA. And so, you know, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae had a problem with this senior lien that I was just describing, that
Like the
would be
senior lien.
associated with these properties. If they, you know, and when they had the problem with it was just when we were coming out of the recession, you know, and so there was some stress in the system, and so they were essentially protecting their position, you know, because they had a first. Well, as you know, tax liens always go ahead of all prior liens. And so they had a problem with that. And they said so. Now, what they said in the market had no real weight in law, but it did chill the market in terms of people wishing not to offend, you know, the 800-pound gorilla, basically. And so while this program had started in California, it did, you know, they sort of suspended operations because of that until this issue was worked out, so that everybody was in agreement, and then basically at the end of the day the homeowner didn't get, you know, in the middle of a big fight or something. And so that has been resolved now, and so that's why we in Missouri have decided that the coast is clear, and the Missouri Clean Energy District will now begin to offer PACE financing for residential properties as well.
Okay. Has anybody spoken to the Set the Pace board members? I know Otis Williams is on there, about their level of interest or not in doing this instead of having a separate board?
Well, not to my knowledge. That current, I'm aware of that board and the members to it, but so there is nothing really that prohibits a community from, you know, having one or more clean energy development boards, or being a member in another board. As I understand, the Set the Pace has focused mostly on commercial properties, as have we, honestly. I mean, simply because of, you know, this Freddie Fannie thing. But the Missouri Clean Energy District has been working probably about a year on developing this residential side, and now is ready to launch. And so, you know, that's why we're encouraging communities to go ahead and join with the district. It has no impact on any other board. They continue to operate. You have the benefit of that, as well as the offering from the Missouri Clean Energy District as well.
Okay. I guess I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out why Set the Pace wouldn't partner with Renovate America.
Well, I suppose they could. However, we currently have an exclusive arrangement with them.
Okay.
So, you know, anyone is able to offer a residential program, a commercial program, any, you know, program that's provided under law. We're simply saying that this is an offering that could be made available to the property owners here, as well as you know, they would have access to the offerings from the current Set the Pace.
Okay, and you're only going to be dealing with residential projects in St. Louis City?
Well, the district has authority to do any property type. So that is sort of the wonderful thing about PACE, is that it sort of drops all these barriers about, you know, whether you can, you know, provide funding for residential property or commercial property or not-for-profit or, you know, municipal or, you know, all these categories that all, you know, all that sort of, they've all been sort of special cases, you know, and you had to sort of finance them in separate ways with different mechanisms. That's all sort of gone now with PACE because the market's agnostic as to that. It's related to a property.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm finished.
Alderwoman Tyus.
So this program in the lien, is it based on the amount of equity that you have in your property? How do you determine if this is a property that you would be able to make a?
Yes.
And is it a loan or, yeah, I guess it's a loan. Right?
I mean, it's the duck thing, you know, I mean, that's what it acts like, except this capital, you know, doesn't have these.
It's a loan credit, I'm trying to get the correct name.
No,
What do we
and
call
that's
it?
fair, you know, it's technically a special assessment.
Special assessment, okay.
But it serves the function of a loan.
Okay.
The capital, as I was saying earlier, it behaves differently than, you know, what is traditional in the market, where you might have this reset that I was talking about or something.
Right.
So it's long-term fixed rate, it's a proper match to the type of project.
Okay.
You're asking about, you know, protections, basically, I think, you know.
Because I'm saying, so, okay, so my neighbor wants to get into
Yeah.
this, and some window guy tells her she can do it.
Yeah.
But what if she doesn't have that much equity in her project? Then
So-
how are you gonna do that?
Well, right, so no, probably not.
Okay.
So.
So equity is a,
It's important,
Factor.
and there's an underwriting criteria.
okay,
You know, it's the sort of thing that honestly, I mean, it's like everything else. It works for many, but it won't work for everyone.
I'm just trying to find out the criteria, so.
Yeah.
Following on from the 11 says, so my next door neighbor wants windows, okay?
Yes, okay.
And so my next door neighbor has a house that's, say, worth $100,000.
Right.
But she got an $80,000 loan
That's
against her
right.
house, okay?
Well,
I know you take.
If you'd say 75, that'd be better.
Okay. No, I'm gonna say 80, so because, so she only has 20,000 in equity, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I know, because, so, just what you said, so it acts like a tax, so it is not subordinate, it's a priority lien, just like your property taxes and everything else, I understand that.
Yeah.
So she wants to do this, but she only has $20,000 in equity. I'm trying to follow the step. Then she comes before this board, which is 5 members at this point?
Yes.
Is that, will the board get bigger as more people come?
No,
Okay, will always just be 5 members?
I hope so.
Oh, okay, but it could.
It could.
Okay, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
the state thinks this is great, and so Kirkwood, not Kirkwood, Kirksville and all the other people, everybody joins in, and they're
That's-
gonna be kind of, so will people start to represent regions, or?
Well, as I say, the members have this say, you know,
Right.
through this process that I described before. Currently, there are 5 board members.
Right.
And with taking input from others.
So they may grow? They
Oh,
could.
yeah, I mean,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, so she got $20,000 in
Yeah,
equity.
so the underwriting criteria for this requires at least this is not going to fit with your numbers, but it's
Okay.
going to, but it is no more than a 90% loan to equity.
Okay,
right?
so let's say she got $40,000 in equity.
Okay, so
Can you repeat that, like, no more than a
no more
night?
than 90%. So it's a rational type of a lending approach. The point being, you don't want to get your next door neighbor in trouble. You know, that's not the point of it. The point is that we want to provide the proper type of capital to people who can manage the load, basically.
You don't have to, I just wanna, you don't have to sell me on it, I'm just trying to find out the steps, okay?
That's it.
Okay,
So there's an underwriting criteria that must be passed.
Okay.
Let me just walk through how, does she have a name, your next door neighbor?
Miss Jones.
Miss Jones. Has-
Well, my next door neighbor is Edith, but
All right, I
she's
like Miss Jones.
95, okay?
So Miss Jones has this issue with her, you know, later in the middle of the dinner.
Right.
And she calls Dave Lennox, you know, and Dave comes over and he says, okay, I have this program that can provide this financing for your thing, and here's how it works. You have enough, I already know, because I have this technology that's provided to me through the district
Right.
and this back office. And so I I know that you currently owe X amount on your house, and you have room in our underwriting criteria to borrow this money to make this retrofit. So here, and I'm gonna make Mrs. Jones 85 years old.
Okay,
And so here is your proposal. Here's the machine that we proposed that will replace that, and that'll fix your problem. Would you like to do that? Yes, okay, well, you sign right here, and we will proceed.
okay.
And so then that is already authorized in terms of underwriting. She signs, you push that button, in under 2 minutes, you have an answer.
Okay.
So she can start to get her problem fixed immediately. All right, so as I mentioned, Mrs. Jones is 85 years old. So what happens is there is an entire team that sort of coddle special classes. And so what happens is, as soon as that vendor leaves, somebody's calling Mrs. Jones on the telephone saying, okay, now, so we've received this paperwork on your request, and this is what you have agreed to. Is that correct? Are you comfortable with that moving forward? And they say yes or no. If they say no, if they say yes, fine, then you just, the vendor carries on and makes the retrofit and so on. If she says no, then that's an issue, and that's raised immediately. And so there are protections in place right now.
Okay.
That, where they say, okay, well, first of all, we cancel that contract.
Okay,
Second of all, we're gonna have a guy going to visit that guy, that Dave, or whoever it is, the guy that works for Dave, really.
right,
And, because Dave has a number, Dave, the Lennox guy, has a number, but Junior Dave, he also has a number. If Junior said something that gave Mrs. Jones heartburn, then a man with shoes on is gonna go visit Junior, and he's going to say to him, what happened here? And if he doesn't have a good answer, it's
Out
pretty
of the program?
it's pretty ruthless.
Out of the program.
He's out of the deal.
Okay.
And Dave is out of the deal until he does something about Junior.
okay,
And so Dave generally does something about Junior. And so then, but even more than that, we know who Junior is. So if he goes to Bob's deal,
He messed up Bob's
he
deal. I
screwed
understand,
up.
'cause he's out.
Okay, so he's
Okay.
out. And so there are these really wonderful protections
Okay.
associated with the program that really, is sort of ingrained into the system. And, but anyway, so Mrs. Jones gets her thing. She, when it's installed and going, she gets another call, and because she's in that class, she gets quite a few calls, just sort of hand-holding. But she approves it, she certifies that this is operating correctly, and she agrees to it. Then that, when she approves that, then that assessment contract that we were talking about before comes to the district office. We authorize that to be recorded in the county of record, and then that's what informs these real estate transactions later. It comes up on the title report and so on. So then she
so
just off and running.
is there a limit of, okay, so what if I have 5 Mrs. Jones on my street? Is there a limit of how many people can apply for this?
No, it's unlimited funding.
Because it's a special assessment?
Because
So
it's a special assessment,
Right,
and
it
there's
just goes
unlimited
against their
funding
house.
for it.
And so if 40 people on my street can qualify, all
Correct.
40 people can do it,
Yes, ma'am.
okay? What about so what if it press the magic button on the device and it says Ms. Jones doesn't have enough equity? Then we have to tell her no right then and
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
But
Okay.
then I would try to get her into a healthy home.
Oh,
And,
right.
and we did do the thing that we did.
I'm okay
Okay.
with that. I'm trying to just understand this program, okay? I know exactly before I've
Right,
been
I
doing
know,
it for
well, I
many
just-
years, okay? I just
Yeah,
trying to
hopefully there are
understand.
other ways.
Right, so I just want to make sure, so there's no limit, okay? They know right away. They're not allowed to put pressure on seniors.
Yes.
Your program has a priority, just like it's not subordinate, it's a priority lien, just like taxes.
Yes.
And the board itself is 5, but it could change as more people come aboard.
Yes,
And the board then elects its own leadership within that board, is that what you said?
The advisory
Right.
board does, all the member communities
Okay, and then, let's see about this, so 5 boards, so I thought our thing says the mayor appoints the board, not,
The,
The mayor appoints a representative.
I mean, that points the representative to the
Yes,
board,
ma'am.
right, right. But I thought you said something about they were elected.
okay, so, the way this Missouri Clean Energy District was created in the first place as a so-called Clean Energy Development Board is that the authority was then provided in the act, in the PACE Act in 2010. But for a board, just as the board, the Set the Pace Board, it had to be created
Right.
by a political subdivision.
Right.
And so, in the case of the Missouri Clean Energy District, that board was created by the city of Jefferson City.
Okay.
And once born, then it's its own political subdivision. But in that case, the mayor of Jefferson City appointed the first 5 board members.
Okay.
They've changed since
Right,
then.
since
but-
that time, as somebody comes aboard, whoever their appointing authority, be it a mayor or a city manager, whatever, will put their person on the board.
Then in this document, there is a request for the named representative from the city.
Right.
And that person then comes to be on the nominating committee and will elect oncoming board members.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Alderwoman Murphy.
No, they took care of it.
I don't know if I don't really have questions. I guess I do have one. Interest rate?
These,
question.
the terms of the borrowing could be from, a year, 3 years to 20 years. So the rate of lending money will be anywhere from, it could be from 5 to 8%, depending on.
That would have been my next question.
Yeah.
From what to what. Okay, and income restrictions.
This is
No.
not income-based, it's asset-based.
Well, and that's the one thing that I like about it. I'll go back to the statement I'm gonna make now. I get a lot of calls, and I just got one from a fireman last week that's got a leaky roof,
Yeah,
and he doesn't qualify,
for what?
Anything.
anything.
Well, he would qualify.
Well, the only thing he qualifies for is to go to the bank,
And pay his
and
tax.
pay that higher rate.
And pay his tax.
Yes, yeah, so, that's the,
I have a whole bunch of people like
kind of
that.
the way I look at it is, as soon as this is passed, I kind of want the information on my desk.
Right.
So when I get these calls, I can say,
Absolutely.
here,
This is
check into this.
Absolutely.
And at least there's another avenue to go through if it's a project that's, what do you say, that's approved by the program.
Right.
So,
So, in that case, without knowing anything else about it, that's a qualified retrofit.
and it's not free money.
No, no.
You're still, no, I know that, but I mean, that's what, answer my phone. People are always looking for what I call
Sure.
free money.
Yeah, yeah.
The grant, and a lot of the income restricted is grant money that's forgiven after time. So just to clarify that, so.
But the flip side to that, and which, you could have said yourself, but the flip side to that is that when you have grant money, that's the whole purpose of PACE, by the way, is that it was recognized that, it's nice to have sort of government programs that provide grant to incent people to do things that they should be doing anyway. The gift of this PACE business is that it provides this unlimited money. It doesn't end, the grant money ends, the programs end, they start, they end. This goes forever. It's always there.
Do we have any other questions?
Okay.
Alderman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, how much extra work is being thrust upon our assessor's office?
None?
According to these, it's not according.
Okay,
Shall I elaborate on that?
um, you could elaborate if you want. I mean,
My answer was lots of work, but for everything we can give them.
Right down here, yeah, where it says,
Oh, well.
it says
Terrible.
notice of
Um,
assessment.
sadly-
Go ahead, Walt.
They just send
Uh,
a copy to the assessor's office, that's all, right?
So,
Yeah, it says
the way this is done by the Missouri Clean Energy District is that it recognized, based on its desire to be a statewide offering, that We have 115 counties in the state of Missouri, and everyone, you can imagine, everyone has a different type of system. And many of them, if not most of them, are not equipped to handle the type of transactions that are going to be brought here. So the district recognized very early on that it would need to provide for its own billing and collections, which it does.
So does it, if I opt for this, for new windows and a new roof, does that, then is the assessors informed with that? And the collector of revenue, would that eventually become a lien against my property if I decide to thumb my nose at the payment?
Yes.
It is a lien upon your property from the day you enter into the assessment contract. So
Pay it
yes,
off.
and it will appear on your title report.
John, isn't this a lot of government?
Just enough.
Asked and answered.
And this is a creature of the Missouri General Assembly, correct?
It is.
It's a talented group of
That may have been a flip answer, but I'll give you the.
No, that's,
You guys must know each other.
no, I don't know anything about the Missouri General Assembly.
And really? How many years were you there?
So, I guess, if the city does this, we are in effect, if I'm being negative, we are adding a tremendous amount of credibility to this program in exchange for, I should have put that in the form of a question. If the city joins, it would be my opinion that we're adding a tremendous amount of credibility to this program, and in exchange for what? I'm in effect giving my constituents in the 11th Ward the opportunity to borrow money, clean up the air at a possibly lesser rate than they can go to a fine institution like Eagle Bank and get.
I'll combine your last two questions,
Okay?
if I may.
Sure.
So you must have government oversight of this program because it's a creature of the legislature. However, this is entirely private capital. What the PACE authority gives us is access to a market that we did not have access to before.
Can I interrupt you? Okay, so if I want to go get a new heating system for my modest brick residence, and I don't have the money to pay for it right now, I can in fact go out and get a commercial loan and pay zip hair and put a furnace in.
Yes.
How does that, and you're telling me that your program, which is privately funded,
Yeah.
that again is competition for the local lender, correct?
You may say that. I would disagree. I'm a banker myself, so I can do that.
I'm not a banker, I'm on a bank board and I don't know anything about banks.
Yes, you do.
But-
You know
No,
that banks
I
can
don't.
only do certain things. And you know that banks, I'm going to connect what I said before, you know that banks are restricted in many areas by FDIC or other regulators. In that, one of those restrictions is that you must be in a position to reprice your money. Correct? So remember what happened to the savings and loan industry some years back. What they did was they lent, much in commercial areas, long-term fixed-rate money. And they found, they were allowed to do that, but they found that they had made a big mistake because they realized that their funding source, or deposits, expected to be repriced, right? And so suddenly, you had a commercial loan at 3% or 4%, when Mrs. Jones expected on her CD 6 or 7% at a time. That's what happened to the savings and loan industry, and that's why when you sit on your bank board, you will know that repricing of your of your loans is required.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of letting my interrogation get off base. How do we add to the city of St. Louis's stature by joining this, I guess is, I don't know what we as a city get out of it. I certainly
take
can
this.
understand what you as a moneylender gets out of it.
Yes. I'm not the money, though. I'm the authority. So, what any city gets from this program is unlimited access to the proper type of capital for these types of projects. Many of these energy efficiency projects have not gone forward in this country for many, many years, even though everybody knows that it's a good idea, and they want to do it. But they're restricted from doing it because of these barriers related to the type of money that is available to them, bank loans, so on, because they're repriced. This long-term, fixed-rate financing is extremely important in the field of energy efficiency. And that's what it is. It gives unlimited access to your property owners forever.
So is your pitch that this particular program, when all the dust settles, is considerably less expensive to my constituents than a home improvement loan?
I would say no. I would say that this is not a replacement for you because you're in a position and you have, let's say, a revolving home equity loan that's 3% or something like that. You're fortunate.
I am.
So
If you got 3%.
you would do that. You would do that. Why wouldn't you? Of course you would. But not everyone has access to that. What we're doing is replacing the types of capital that might be, first of all, we're trying to get more people to do these projects that they want to do. But we're providing capital that's affordable, but that, might avoid them having to do what somebody said, put 18%, credit card. Mrs. Jones has her emergency and all she has available to her is this credit card or something like that. So we're trying to provide that type of a facility.
Is it fair to ask you, John, has this worked its way through the halls of the state capitol building? Who opposed it? And that might be a silly question, I don't know.
Well, this was in 2010.
Okay,
So I don't have a roster.
yeah.
But it made it through.
What industries
There-
opposed it?
No industry opposed it. You would think that the Missouri Bankers Association would oppose it, but they actually supported it. That might be a better answer for you, actually.
The Missouri Bankers Association usually gets what they want. but-
Well, that's true. I've learned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Alderwoman
Oh.
Tights, well, you were next. You had a
Okay.
question at the same time, so.
Okay. Are only certain contractors able to do this program, or can any contractor do this program?
Really, any contractor is there are qualifications, as I said, and there's monitoring ongoing for every contractor, but every contractor would have, access to apply to be involved in the program.
And when you say qualifications such as?
What you would expect. In Missouri, for instance, there is no statewide licensing program, but there are ways to qualify, vendors and contractors.
So if a contractor's in good
Insurance,
standing
experience,
and all of that, doesn't have a lot of things against him where he's not completed his projects and things, okay?
Yes, and there's a good bit of vigilance early in the program, more so than a mature program.
Do they have to be a certain size, so?
No, and that was something that really is of interest to me because, we want this to be statewide and not every, Pucker Brush, Missouri is St. Louis, so there are small communities out there that need jobs too, and this really drives that, and any any vendor can qualify.
And you said this loan could be 3 to 20 years and it's 5 to 8% interest, right?
Mhm.
So it's pretty much the same interest as a bank may offer you for a home improvement loan.
You'd have to ask the bank.
You're a banker.
I am.
You just said that, so you should be able to give me
Now I
that
have to tell you
answer.
everything.
See,
so-
I listen.
So, I would say, if, you know, Mr. Lucky, you know, has that 3% home equity line, he's more apt to do, I would
They're closing
take
them
my.
down. I had a 4%.
Okay.
They're closing them all down.
Okay, well-
And trying to make you refinance.
I think so.
Okay, and my last thing is,
I was pointing at that guy behind you.
Thank you.
I can see that where it's something good for you, because by doing it this way, you get a priority lien that you would not get if you were a second
No, that's
or a
what gives
third.
access to the market, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's your catch. So I got what, I know why you wanna do it.
Well-
So now following that, because I would wanna also be a special
Yeah.
assessment, because I go in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So if I get paid first, and that is important when it's a bankruptcy or something, people
right.
don't pay. But, or even if you sell and the house doesn't make enough money, you would get first priority. The only person who would be competing with you would be property taxes or something like that. Or
That's
deed.
correct. No, that's
Okay.
right.
Okay, so back to what the alderman from the 11th, he taught me when I first came down. He's the only person who was here when I got here. So now, what is it that the city gets?
Clean
No.
Was that question directed to me?
I could,
Access to the capital,
right, that's what I was suggesting.
Access to what?
to the
To
capital.
the money.
The city
All
doesn't
this,
have that
all
access.
all this is, all this is, in everything I got from it, all this is just another source to be able to go to. You don't have to go to this, you can use a credit card, you can go to the bank, it's just one more tool to be able to borrow against.
But what I'm thinking, okay, so
And
if
it
I can
doesn't
qualify
cost
for
us.
your qualifications,
Mhm.
then I should be able to qualify for the bank's qualifications.
You might do. You might do.
And-
And that's there's nothing, this is entirely voluntary, you know, it's just another offering that if it makes sense for people to use it, then that's all to the good.
And so, again, what the alderman was saying, when we put our stamp on something,
Mhm.
we should want to get something back, okay? And as I said before, you get something really good, because you get priority.
Right.
That's important,
Right.
okay? So, what does the city get back? And you're saying just the only thing is that
Well, it's
another,
just one more tool that people can, it's not what the city gets, it's what the citizens get, and the citizens get one more tool.
but it's
to
no
be
more
able-
and I'm saying it's no
Well,
different
because
than
if
if you
I-
get a home equity loan.
Sort of. Because one, if you're gonna go get a home equity loan, it's gonna take like 30 or
Mm.
90 days.
And how long does
but-
this process take?
I don't know, we'll
In
answer,
me.
'cause I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, but the other issue is, if I'm gonna go out and borrow just for an AC system, I'm probably gonna go through whoever that company deals with, and they'll probably give me 2 or 3 years to pay it, you know,
Yeah.
at either low or no interest or
If you have
high
an equity
interest.
line, you can.
Well, I
have-
don't, but I don't have an equity line,
Oh,
so.
okay.
I think this will
So-
go, and that's a good point, that, you know,
Because we-
some do, some don't. And there is a time factor in some of these things. It's good
I'm
to
in a
remember.
meeting. I'm in session. I'll call you back. Sorry, that's a state rep.
It's good to, there may be an emergency.
Well,
It-
she'll have to wait.
It's good to remember, though, you know, that this is not only affecting this property owner base, it is extremely important for the contractor base, for the jobs in the community. I think you speak with any Dave Lennox out there and the contractor community, they will tell you they're very excited about this access to a financial.
So you already have some contractors that are already up and working with the program.
What we have been doing the commercial, and so we're dealing
You just
with
started.
contractors around, many of them more for the commercial side, but once we have this residential, you can imagine how many trades that brings into the fold here from everything every item that we've been talking about here today.
So in saying contractors, my other thing is that, do you have minority contractors that are part of this
Mhm.
already? Or-
Already,
Mhm.
in the
business end?
yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And who do you work with who, and not
Well,
specific
I'm-
personally, are you working with like in St. Louis, MoCan, or?
No,
in Kansas?
so we haven't been, of course, authorized in St. Louis up till now.
I thought you were doing the business end of it.
Nothing in St.
Oh,
Louis.
okay,
The
okay.
district itself has been doing the commercial
Okay.
side,
Okay.
and now starting the residential.
But in the district itself, is Kansas City already part of
Yes,
this?
uh-huh.
So I used to live there, so are
Uh-huh.
you doing minority
Yes,
contractors?
yes, and we're working with the city of Kansas City, and one of our board members is Shamar Benton, and he's sort of driving that,
Okay.
women-owned and minority-owned side of policy.
Okay. That's it.
Alderwoman Ingracia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman, were you aware that St. Louis City released an RFP through Set the Pace on February 18th to expand our program to residential, institutional, municipal projects?
No, but this is just one more thing that people can go to. If you
Right.
don't believe it's a good thing, don't vote for it. But I believe.
I
it
don't
gets
want you to
one
get
more tool.
defensive.
I'm
I
not
just
getting
wanted to make sure
defensive.
that you were aware of that, and I'm concerned that we haven't reached out to Otis Williams, who is part of our city government, or anyone else on the board to determine their thoughts on it.
Well,
And so I respectfully ask you to hold the bill until we have a chance to get their
If we
thoughts on
hold
it.
Then we wouldn't have time to get it done in this session, so.
That's not
I would-
necessarily true.
I would rather vote on it, and if it goes, it goes, and if it don't, it don't. And then, if need be, then I would, because holding it would only, basically, we only got 2 meetings after this Friday.
We don't have all sides of the story, though. We have a side of somebody who's from out of the state trying to make money, and we have an RFP that's in front of, that St. Louis City already released on the 18th, and I think it's only fair that we hear the side from Set the Pace St. Louis.
I would hope that people go with what they feel the best deal is. This is not something saying, this is what you have to do. It's just one more tool. I would say you open up as many different offerings as you can. You know, I mean, there's people going to those places I would never go to, where you bring your car title and pay, a ton just to, so you can survive. I mean, I don't necessarily would never want to go to, and I think those are terrible, but it's just, this is just one more tool.
Okay,
So
I understand that. I guess my,
Whatever they're offering, hopefully should be a good deal. And I would assume that it's limited in the amount of capital, that it has. I don't think it's unlimited. Where this is not limited, that I'm sure has limitations. I'd have to look more into it.
we don't know, and I guess that's what I'm saying. I think we should hold the bill
Oh,
this
I
week and
think-
have a conversation with
We're
Otis
okay.
Williams or somebody else from Set the Pace.
I think are we changing tapes or?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm running a meeting. I'll
Oh, I
let-
was doing all this stuff. I was reading into that. He was doing more.
He said dryly.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Villa.
Mr. Chairman, may I inquire the Alderwoman from the 6th?
Yes.
Could you expand briefly for me on what this RFP calls for?
Sure, I just looked it up online, let me pull it back up. The one blurb okay. The Clean Energy Development Board of the City of St. Louis is issuing a request for proposals to solicit proposals from organizations to serve as a program admin for the City of St. Louis's Set the Pace program. The contract date is expected to be May 1st, 2016. It is predominantly completed commercial projects, but we have a strong interest in not only continuing to grow the commercial aspect of the program, but also to expand to include residential, municipal, and institutional projects.
So under that scenario, the chairman might inquire John. John, so are there a lot of other people in this business?
And I'm familiar with this RFP, and we're familiar with the Set the Pace program. And I would say right off that what I've said initially, and that is that this membership that we're suggesting has nothing to do with the existing PACE board here. Their offerings are available to anyone who wishes to take advantage of them. And ours is simply access to a different source of capital and more. So, I may have forgotten the question. But the fact that there's an existing Clean Energy Development Board does not prohibit joining with the Missouri Clean Energy District.
John, excuse me. The difference is the access to capital. The city does not currently have, nor do they anticipate, access to a big pot of money
This was
to finance these things.
This is an RFP for an administration firm, and so that's all. You currently have an administrator, but I think maybe a time has gone by where you decided an RFP would go out to seek another administration firm. The administration of the current board does essentially what I am doing here, and that is running the district. And the money, capital, is simply private money. The district happens to have now access to this unlimited source of capital through bond issuance for residential and commercial projects. The city program, the Set the Pace program currently, has the authority. They're seeking a new administrator for their program, and I can't speak to their access to capital, really.
And I think that's the issue. No one here can.
Well, before I call on Alderwoman Murphy, my guess would be, because where it's being distributed from, it's probably block grant money. That would be just a guess. So,
Well-
but kind of the way I'm talking about the city program.
Yeah,
This would be.
I know that's not the case.
Do we know how much?
I know what it is. I mean, I just didn't want to speak for somebody else. Basically, this is a
Give
private.
us your best guesstimation.
Okay, well, this is a private firm out of Wisconsin that's providing a certain amount of a small pool of money, and but that is not a limiting factor for the current board. They can access other funding at any time. And what I'm saying is that what we're talking about does not influence, impact, get in the way in any way the current operation of the Set the Pace board. It's simply providing access to another source of capital. That's all. And it's, everybody can make their own choices.
Alderwoman Murphy?
I was just gonna ask, Alderman from the 6th, the city program, would that have income restrictions on it?
No.
As far as who can borrow the money and the length of time or
No.
anything like that?
No, and I
Okay.
would say, I'm not speaking on behalf, I'm just concerned that while I'm sitting here Googling things and pulling information up nobody else that is involved in Set the Pace St. Louis seems to know what's going on. I don't think it's fair that we move forward until they have an opportunity to speak with us.
Alderman Villa?
I mean, Mr. Chairman, my fear is, and John has been delightful, but are we once again giving out a no-bid contract? If in fact, I mean, I can see the distinct advantage for them of the city of St. Louis joining this, whether we know our finances ain't that great, but the rest of the world, when the city joins, I think we give them instant credibility. And then my question continues to be, for what? And the answer seems to be an additional pot of money. But the rates that John is talking about don't appear to be that great. May I inquire the sponsor?
Sure.
Yeah, but you got 2 minutes. Then we gotta take a break.
Alderman, what's our hurry?
Well, because we're running out of time in this session. And even holding it
It
just.
seems to be a thematic, I mean, that's a,
I
that's a
understand.
thematic device that permeates everything we do here.
I know, and it always
We're
seems-
running out of time. We'll have an extra meeting.
Well, so, I mean, and,
I'm sorry, I
and
didn't
and you
want
were
to
saying
change.
before this, that you don't want any more extra meetings. And I know the stuff we were
No,
talking
I
about.
have a life to live, and we set the adjourning
I
days,
understand.
and then we just add 2 or 3 meetings because the NFL tells us to.
No, but-
I don't
All right,
necessarily
let's stay
buy
with
into
the
that.
board. You know, and that's something I wanna get straight too. This is a different program, this is what's in front of us, not the city program, and that's been out there, I've looked at it before, but it's been so long ago, I can't remember what the whole thing was. But you know, that I remember when I went over it, it didn't look like anything I could refer to constituents. But kind of what I'm looking at here is this is a equity, more of an equity driven with people that don't really have the money, that have equity in their house, that can attach it there. Time out, break. Go ahead, we'll stop now. While he changes the tape, it'll take him 10 seconds. I'll put him up there. No.
And we might,
Is this the last day we can kick this out, Joe?
only unless if we have, well, I think because the bill over in.
Are we allowed to talk without the camera being on?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not talking about the bill
we're
anyway.
not, we're in
I,
recess right
I
now.
would assume that with the bill that's going on in public safety, that
Are we
we're gonna
back
end
on?
up having extra meetings anyway. I got the feeling, I
Or
mean, I don't know.
suspending the rules.
Or suspending the rules, I mean.
When is our
it's-
For
last
what?
day before?
Well, the
Is it allowed
the
one
Jeffrey
for the-
Boyd's bill to change the pension system stuff, that one's going on from 10, and it was still going on after 1 when I was over here.
So we could still hold it and bring people in, and you could finish
Yes.
some of the floor.
We still
and
have
then
time.
yeah.
We can still win.
We still have time for
To
it to
pass
pass
it.
this session.
Right.
We're back.
Have the city.
All right, we're gonna continue the Parks and Environmental Matters Committee, so, Alderman Vaccaro, could you let Mr. Hamilton sit there a minute?
Sure.
And you can just stay right there, so
Sure.
Alderwoman Tyus wants to interrogate Mr. Hamilton.
No, you seem to have some information that I wanted to hear more about what you were saying about the difference in the money or the city programs.
Well, the city, as I understand it, the Set the Pace Board was set up 4 years ago, and it has done very little, except I think they backed a program at the Missouri Athletic Club to put some energy efficient stuff
Zing,
in
zing,
there.
zing, okay.
Haven't done that much. Now, just recently with what do they call those bonds? The
Qualified Energy Conservation Bonds.
Yeah, the QECB bonds.
QECB.
Alderman Vaccaro, on behalf of the comptroller, passed an ordinance to authorize the city to issue bonds to do, I think, renovations, energy renovations to the Carnahan Courthouse. But the city,
Let me explain that real quick. So $1 million, some odd 100,000 went to, well, $1 million is gonna go to renovate that. There's gonna be about 800,000 left for city buildings, and $2 million that will go to anybody that qualifies as a low-interest loan. And that'll be the homeowners. That's
so,
that.
but the city issued bonds to do that.
Okay.
And I'm not a bond expert by any chance, but I've been around the city long enough to understand the city doesn't have a lot of depth in its change purse to be issuing lots of bonds. And so what the difference between what the city's program is now and what the Missouri Clean Energy District offers is they have access to this bond market without attaching it to the city at all. And this is the partnership they have with Renovate America. Renovate America has done about a little over 300 municipal and county governments in California have signed on with them, and they've issued over $1 billion worth of residential improvement project bonds in California. So they package these things up and are able to take it to the market, which is beyond the capability of the city right now. So when they say offering an additional outlet, that's what they're doing.
So now the city was only doing commercial also, they
Commercial.
weren't doing, and now they're
Right.
getting ready to. I asked for you, Lou, because you've been before this board more than both of these people, okay? So I'm comfortable with asking you things.
And I'll give you the best information I
We've
got.
been on the
Yeah.
different sides, but
Yeah.
okay, but now the city is going into residential, right?
Right, but what they put out on their RFP is to hire an administrator. They've got an existing administrator, correct me if I'm wrong on this, John, but the people that put together the original Set the Pace St. Louis, there's a board, and it's being administered through a third party that hasn't done much, and I think the city's putting that out to bring somebody different in to see if they can move the program a little bit. But as John has said, and what we've said, is that there's no conflict between what the city's doing and what Missouri Clean Energy District is doing. The MCED was envisioned to be a statewide organization. The state legislation doesn't restrict any city to having their own or to joining one. You can do any combination of the above. MCED's got about 50-some municipal governments, including a number of them in St. Louis County. They got the city of Kansas City, and they've got a statewide pool now that is moving into the residential market. I would submit to you that the beauty of having a statewide organization is each city doesn't then have to have a different set of rules. And if the city gets into doing residential mortgages only in the city, you're gonna, there's a lot of additional bureaucratic things that are gonna take place that the city, I'm not a city official, but I would argue perhaps persuasively that the city doesn't need another layer of government to.
Okay, so you
Do
say
things.
there's no conflict, but, okay, so.
I don't think so.
Would Otis Williams come here and say that, do you think?
I don't know,
Okay.
I don't.
Is there any potential for conflict?
I don't think so. I think the city is not gonna make money on its program. This should be looked at as a value added. The city is not gonna likely have the opportunity to reach the capital market that these guys are gonna be able to do. And keep in mind, there's two things going on here. One is the primary purpose of the PACE districts is to help encourage energy conservation and retrofits to residential and commercial properties for energy purposes. That's the primary reason. The secondary purpose of these local PACE districts is to provide opportunities for, Alderman Villa was the example. If you have very good credit and you have access to a bank line, you're not going to use this.
Right.
You're either not going to do it, or if you're one of those lucky people that's got big capacity on their credit card, then you're going to go and borrow $15,000 and pay 18 or 20% on your credit card. This is meant for the people that are stable, that have the ability, that have room on their home value
Right.
to be able to do this and to be able to spread the payments out at a reasonable interest rate. And so it's not going to be a market for everyone. And as I understand the program, and I've been involved in this only for about 2 months, as I understand the program, there is no municipal government, including the city of St. Louis, that has the capacity to handle the kind of volume on the residential side that needs to be done on something like this. And that's why the MCED makes a lot of sense. And it's not a conflict with the city. The city can join 3 other districts if they want. There's no exclusivity. This does not give the MCED any exclusive rights to do anything in the city. It just says, we, the city, are now going to be members of the MCED, and therefore our citizens are, if they so elect, may participate in the MCED energy efficiency program or in the Show Me, what's it?
Set the Pace.
Set the Pace St. Louis, or any other one that might come along.
So now, and I'm asking about PACE here. So does PACE also, would they also be able to be like a tax lien? Is that what they would do with their loan, do you know?
Well, yeah, that's what the whole thing is. The city is the same way.
Okay.
Property Assessment Clean Energy Program.
So then we
that-
could have the city doing that and?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And I guess the city knew we were having this hearing, so if they were really objecting to it, is the mayor's office here taking a position at all?
I think we would love to have an opportunity to have Otis Williams talk.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I didn't ask, is that all right?
Yes.
We would love to have an opportunity to have Otis and potentially Catherine Warner come to speak to you about Set the Pace, which is not possible to have them here today. It was introduced last week, there was a quick turnaround on the hearing, so it just wasn't possible to get them here.
Okay, now back to this, so, and we still can get this passed, so,
I think it was, excuse me, I think it was introduced the week before that.
On the
It was
12th.
Assigned to a different committee, so it got put in Parks and Environmental last Friday.
I texted 3 of the board members I know and Set the Pace St. Louis, and none of them knew about it, the legislation, so that concerns me.
so my question would be, okay, so we still, because we can suspend rules and get it passed. I'm kind of leaning toward this, I'm gonna tell you. But I always, I always like more information. I never think, says, would you all be really upset if this was something we could bring the other people in to speak for themselves?
What?
I'm putting you on the spot.
If I may suggest,
Okay.
what I would suggest is, with the cooperation of the sponsor, what I would suggest is that the committee take a vote on this. I would like to see, suggest you pass it out and then ask the sponsor to hold it until you can, because if we can't get the people to show up here in the next 2 weeks,
Oh, no, that's not. Okay, that wasn't, because
Well,
if they don't come.
here's what I can do. I can hold it, and we can set up a meeting next week, and then
Right,
it's up to
they
them to
better
come.
come.
If they don't show,
That's exactly right. Then they
it'll
lose
just
their
pass out.
opportunity.
But before I go to that point, I mean, the thing I like about it is opportunity, and as I'm thinking about the city program, I actually remember when it came up, is when we were doing solar panels at the time, and where I found out from was the company that put the solar panels on the roof, he handed me the pamphlet. I didn't find out from anyone here. I found out from the contractor that put the solar panels on, that it's another program that my wife and I might be interested in. But, the more I think about the City Pace program, but I don't know how this would be advertised, or, whether it would be like flyers or, pamphlets or whatever. But I like the idea of having more options than just,
I do too.
one or the other. So what I'll do today is I'll go ahead and, I'm gonna go ahead and hold it.
Okay.
And then I'll set up a meeting.
And they can come or not.
I'll
Okay.
get with Patrick right away, right after this meeting, and we'll set a time for
And-
next week, and then we'll.
Mr. Chairman, may I add, just as part of the discussion about why the rush, we didn't design this to be a rush. It was introduced in plenty of time on the 12th. We deliberately did it with plenty of time so we wouldn't have to suspend rules and do things. I'm sensitive to people's concern about that. And in fact, if you would, the Alderman of the 6th Ward was one of the first people I called about this and sent you a copy of the draft, and I never got a call back from you on this. So I would have been happy to answer those kind of questions early on, but you never called me back.
That's why.
So,
It just got moved back on.
But just-
And the
there
other
you go.
thing, they are advertised. I mean, people are supposed to, if there's an interest, they're looking, see what's on the agenda. So, the aggravating thing, one of the aggravating things for me here, is when we get to the floor and something comes up and nobody knew that it was even in committee or what was discussed in the committee, and that whole process.
Or we
But
could-
that's a whole different meeting.
Or we can have
So-
committees where outside people are
But-
not allowed to ask questions.
But this isn't the only one. I have a bill in public safety also that, we're gonna come back next week, so we will, it's looking like we're gonna
That's
end up
fine.
suspending the rules, so, but I'll set the meeting up and, get it out, have Tracy send it out to all the committee members, and then, Patrick will know if she can, so he can invite everybody that you want, and Alderwoman Gracia, almost, you can let him know if you want anyone else here.
And then their primary sponsor is the president, so he could just give us one more week to have meetings if we have to.
Well, I can take a vote on that now. So,
Oh, I'm sorry, he's the person that don't let you ask questions if you're not on the committee. I've never, in the 12 years I was here.
We're gonna hold a
I've
building
never
committee,
heard
so
of
this
that. I
meeting
came back
is
here.
adjourned.
I don't care if people do